5:15. We're ready to commence with our meeting for this evening. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank everyone for coming this evening. The roll call will show that all council members are here. Move on to the consent agenda. This includes approval of minutes of the January 13th, 25 meeting, approval of bills and claims, license and permits, including renewal of Class B retail alcohol license for Dollar General Store, renewal of Class E retail alcohol license for Casey's General Store, and number 3082, and renewal of special Class C retail alcohol license, GMB Foods Incorporated, which is Godfather's Pizza. Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
By Tom and JJ seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Fournier.
Yes.
Atherton.
Yep.
Bauer.
Yes.
Dirk.
Yes.
Streck. Yes. Seaman.
Yes.
Motion's approved.
All right, so we'll move on to oral requests and communications from the audience. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak this evening? Go ahead, state your name. You have 5 minutes.
I'm Vicki Gatz from the Historic Preservation Commission. We are required to file an annual report, and this is my annual report to you. Our 2024 projects, and I laid sheets out for you so you can read the details, but we did get the National Register nomination completed for Graham Park. The band shell fundraising exceeded our expectations. We were shooting for $75,000, and we have over $100,000 already collected. Other projects, we had a character walk on June 2nd in connection with the Carroll County Historical Society for Graham Park. Carolyn and I spoke in the cemetery about the cemetery history on Memorial Day with the American Legion. We took turns maintaining and cleaning the cemetery museum, also many of the older gravestones and the crucifixion statues in the cemetery. We had a little red bridge sign placed on the Sauk Trail in Rolling Hills. And Carolyn and I attended a National Alliance of Preservation Commission's webinar. Part of our requirements are to have ongoing education. And they also added directional signage to Laker Court, its historical marker. Our projects planned for 2025 are on the second sheet. We hope to finish painting the wrought iron cemetery fence. We started this project in 2020. We got the whole north end done, both main gates, the 80 sections of the Catholic Cemetery, and 14 sections of the Grant Road side, but we still have 50 sections to go. So we have to have the money to have the sand or soda blasting done in order to get the metal fence back down to its original metal so we can paint over that again. So we'll be continue working on that and raising money for that. We also are working on a donor board for the supporters of the band shell project, and it looks temporarily right now something like this, where we have all of the donors listed. Is it on there? Oops. Okay. So it has the names according to the donation categories, and we're working on where it's going to be placed and how big it's going to be ultimately. We're going to continue to clean the tombstones in the cemetery, continue the ongoing required CLG training that we need, and continue to maintain the cemetery museum, which we do monthly except during the winter months. And in May, the whole commission comes and does a thorough cleaning of the place. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for all the work you've done.
Well, we appreciate your support.
Thank you, Vicki.
Okay, there are no ordinances this evening, so move on to resolutions. First one is General Obligation Capital Loan Notes, Series 2026A, and Laura.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, as part of our budget presentation, we'll be talking about a debt proposal, but for tonight's purposes, this is what we call our reimbursement resolution. It is an action we'd like council to take for an upcoming debt issuance. If you'll recall, at the the December council meeting, council approved the contract for the wastewater treatment plant digester and the VLR air piping improvements project, as well as back last summer, council approved the purchase of a water tanker fire truck. And since those items are under contract already, and we're planning on potentially issuing debt to pay for those, we need to enter into this reimbursement resolution so that when we do issue the debt, we can reimburse ourselves with this tax exempt debt at a later date. possibly a chance that we will be making expenditures on these projects prior to the debt issuance. And in order to reimburse yourself for these expenditures with this type of a debt, you need to enter into this reimbursement resolution before you have the expenditures. So that is the reason for the action asked for tonight. Are there any questions about this reimbursement resolution?
All right, no questions. I'm gonna look for a motion to approve the Treasury Regulation 1.150-2 as presented.
So moved.
And Tom and Jason seconded. Roll call, please.
Dirks?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Atherton?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Strack? Yes. Bordenaro?
Yes.
Resolution approved.
All right, we'll go on to reports, and first one is on 12th Street reconstruction, and Randy.
Oh, you missed the Nagel family minor
Oh, I'm very
subdivision.
sorry. Okay, I scratched off the wrong one. So, Nago family minor subdivision, and Aaron.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This past week on January 22nd, the Planning and Zoning Board met to review the minor subdivision request from the Nagel family. The Planning and Zone, effectively, this is they're parceling off a small piece of property to go with the acreage, so that there's over a 5-acre lot there along with the rest of the acreage, which becomes over a 20-acre lot. The Planning and Zoning Committee approved it and is recommending approval to the City Council.
So moved.
All right,
Second.
second. Jason moved.
Second.
I had Tom already.
Okay.
All right, roll call vote, please.
Dirks?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Bordenaro?
Yes.
Atherton?
Yes.
Strack? Yes. Motion is approved.
All right, now we go to reports of 12th Street reconstruction, and Randy.
Thank you, Mayor. The 12th Street reconstruction project is currently under design, and at this point in the design, a selection of pavement width is necessary. The current pavement width, it varies a little bit among the blocks, but it's roughly 26 feet back-to-back of curbs. There is some parking, as is currently, removed from sections of the corridor, and the corridor is West Street to Grant Road. And the reason this has come to you is because the 12th Street is functionally classified as a minor arterial. There is federal aid funding in the project, and as such, you're under some restriction as far as the width is concerned, and the parking. And the parking is obviously a legislative decision. The restrictions that you're kind of under begin with the city's code of ordinance, the subdivision regulations, that require that municipal arterials be 31 feet back-to-back of curbs. Of course, our residential streets that are constructed in subdivisions are generally 28 feet. And then if it is an arterial in the subdivision, a 31-foot back-to-back is required. The DOT also has some restrictions because it's a federal aid funded project. Their preferred design would be no parking and 31 feet back-to-back of curbs. They do accept a roadway width with parking of 34 feet and a roadway width without parking of 26 feet. There's also within the DOT design limits what's called a complete streets design. And that would, under complete streets, that would permit a 28-foot back-to-back street with parking on one side. But the caveat with complete streets is you look at all forms, modes of transportation within the corridor. And in this corridor, most likely it would be pedestrian. And in that case, there's no final decision on it, but likely there would be some requirement for upgrading the sidewalks to conform to ADA requirements. Not only the curb ramps, which would be done in any case, but the linear sidewalks as well. And of course, in your city code, sidewalks are required in subdivisions on one side of residential streets and both sides of arterial streets. So that's just part of the city code.
That's one block from the school, correct?
Yes, a portion of it is, yes,
So the other portion that goes down the hill is considered arterial,
yes.
and it's supposed to have sidewalks on both sides.
Well, that's part of the city code right now. It wasn't when the street was built, obviously, but
Just
when,
because there's no parking on the north, or no sidewalks on the north side right now.
right, yeah. And likely, if it were to be designed as a complete streets project, that would be a consideration. Not necessarily saying at this time that it would be a requirement, but it would have to be reviewed.
So Randy, if this street's widened, how many, I mean, obviously it's gonna affect every property on that street, but I'm looking if I've got say, a garage that's coming out to 12th Street and you take 4 or 5 feet away, and I may not have that 4 or 5 feet away. I mean, who buys that land from that homeowner?
It's already right of way. The road right of way is the western part from West Street to about Clark Street, Court Street, is 80 feet. So there's plenty of land. And then from Clark to Grant, it's 66 feet. So there's plenty of property to build a street that's 28, 31, 28's only 2 feet wider. And a portion, on a couple of the blocks, it's already 28 feet.
So here's my question is that we're doing this because there's a structural problem on the road at Clark Street, right?
Well,
So serve me correctly, there was some type of structural problem with the road.
well, the road is in need of replacement through the entire length, actually. It's failing.
What happens if we don't? Because I don't want to get in the situation where we're replacing a road or a longer length of the road and creating a larger problem than just fixing does that make sense? Like if is there some kind of catastrophic thing that's gonna happen if we don't replace this road?
Well, I think this was on our full depth reconstruction, portion number 2 that we
Yeah,
decided
but
on years ago.
but we agree to that, but as this comes up and now there's more and more and more costs involved, does that make sense? Like, I had the villa, at some point in time, the costs, I had to make decisions on like, hey, we're not gonna go forward on this because the costs got out of control. Does that make sense? And so that's where I'm trying to judge if we didn't do anything, like what is the length of this road gonna last? Is there some kind of catastrophic, not to kind of put you on the spot, but as we keep on adding stuff to it, at some point in time, you gotta look like, whoa, are we creating a bigger problem than what it would create if we didn't do it?
Randy, when was the infrastructure under the road, sewer and water, when was all that installed?
Oh, that was installed obviously when the road was built. And I don't have that date right now. It's, based on the appearance, the housing adjacent to the road, probably in excess of 70 years, I would guess.
Do you have a camera go down that like you did the 12th Street?
Yes.
And what'd that show?
There was some replacement is needed of the sanitary sewer.
Like how much though? If that's something that's kind of
We're still trying to develop that information. But like, it's all about the same age. And the worst part of the deterioration of sanitary sewer is in the joints. That's just typical and typical of this section. And with deteriorated joints, it permits infiltration and inflow into the sanitary sewer, which then surcharges the wastewater treatment plant during wet weather flows. So the replacements or the rehabilitation of sanitary sewer, in the case where the pavement's removed, more likely, like Adams Street, removal and replacement is the solution to it.
So is it on the, I guess, and I'm not fighting this, guys, I'm just trying to process through my head of like, we don't do this, cause it creates so many more different problems and stuff like that, and more, what happens?
Well, if we don't, first of all, if we don't do it, the cost of the project just gets bigger, because it's never gonna go down.
But we save money every year that we're not doing it, so that adds to it, but yes.
Sort of. The other side of it is when you pull out a full depth reconstruction, you want to make sure you replace the utilities underneath, because down the road, if you have old utilities, now you have to pull up a brand new street to replace the utilities.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
So that's kind of why you're doing that
We're
whole
doing it
thing.
because the utilities are,
Well, the utilities are old, but the street is ready to be replaced. It's that old also.
okay.
So
Yeah,
Randy,
no, I'm not like fighting, I just,
how wide is the bridge there? Is that wide enough now?
That is wide enough for a 28-foot road to be placed over it. If we would go to 31, it would probably have to be extended. Now, that box culvert, it will also be enlarged at drain 77, based on a drainage study years ago to reduce the backwater and the flooding potential at that location.
Randy, will someone from McClure be here at our meeting on February 10th to talk about, you say you're going to have preliminary drawings, comparative cost estimates, et cetera. Will someone be here from McClure to, they've been really good in the past, like when we did Adams, to answer any questions or just to, help us?
We can invite them,
Okay. Is it Cody? Cody is,
likely, yes.
okay, thanks.
and I'll tell you this, that sidewalk, whatever we're gonna have to do, that sidewalk's used by 75 kids twice a day, every single day. And so I assume at this point, whatever age if we go ahead forward with this, we're gonna have to, you know what I mean? It's going to have to be up to code and there's that many kids every single day, twice a day, that, walk on my little rock wall and cross that street right there. And so, whatever it is that if we're gonna do it, whatever we have to do to make sure that the safety of these kids in and out of there, we're gonna have to, we're gonna have to kind of bite the bullet on it.
Do we have to widen the sidewalks to be ADA compliant? Is that accurate? I thought I heard you say that. If we did the entire thing and not just the intersection.
Not necessarily widening them. However, the DOT's current requirement for sidewalk is 5 feet. And with the federal aid funding, they may hold the city to that construction width.
What percentage is the federal aid funding?
It's, the total dollar amount is 800 out of a total project of about 4 million, I believe.
But just shy of a fourth.
Yeah.
And I would also look at putting in a stop sign there on that 12th and Adams, just because cars come over that hill. My kids don't walk it, but there's kids that go to elementary and it's like literally Frogger, going over there, so.
Okay.
Brother.
Good.
Do you have an idea of how many water and sewer lines to the homes that would potentially need to be replaced? When we talked to Adams Street last time, we talked special assessments, which got everybody in an uproar, which is totally understandable. But I think on your side, one thing we should know too is if we want to mess with doing those special assessments for these people, I think it's a good option for a financing side for them without having to pull, whether it's $2,000 or $10,000 out of their pocket to replace their water or sewer line while this is being done.
Yeah, on the Adams Street one, the way as it ended up, we had about 6 properties out of 66 opted for that special assessment. It was a really good offer to them to do it, but it was a low percentage of participants on it. And it costs to do the special assessment. It was nearly $12,000 just for the legal fees for the special assessment. So it added up quite a bit. And not, that 12,000 wasn't totally laid off onto the property owners, just their percentage of that was. So it was a really good offer, but really low participation. And certainly, each property will be contacted for this, in this project, and offered that. And I guess if, you know, if there's enough interest in it, then you can proceed again with the special
I
assessment.
think it was a learning curve for us last time, but, you know, I think it's a decent option for people, but definitely
Yeah.
has to be worth the time and effort to be laid out there for people as well.
Well, I think it's valuable to not tear up that road again.
Yeah,
in the
yeah, what
future.
does it cost us
And it's a
later to
low cost
retear
for
it?
that versus
That'd be
digging back into it
Well,
a year later, so.
Yeah, certainly. In the Adams Street project, you paid for the sewer line from the center of the street out from under the paving. So it was new and wouldn't have to be dug in again. There were a few of the residents opted to extend that then on into their home, and they paid for that, the rest of the extension. Same with water. Yeah, the city paid for the water line up to the stop box, which was behind the sidewalk. And then there's a few of the residents opted for extending on in to their house under special assessment. So,
And is that, it looks like it's a $5.2 million project. We're gonna geo-bond $2 million of it. Is this, all this added into that 5.2, or is this gonna exceed that 5.2? The
That-
ADA and stuff?
well, the ADA hasn't been determined. We've got just a general cost estimate.
If we do, is that gonna be, do you think that'll increase to 5.2?
Yes.
And then the second question is, it looks like we have federal funding for 800,000, I guess it's to you guys. As we modify this to ADA and stuff, are there grants that can take that 800,000, I don't know, maybe up to $1 million with us doing it, the ADA and putting it in, because there's a school there, I just didn't know if, so we can so we can kind of drive down some of that cost to do it the right way, right? But understanding that, like, I mean, the federal government has a say in if a school, 100 feet from a school, what they want their sidewalk to look like, then they should also chip in, you know what I mean? They should chip in. Maybe not the full amount, but I just didn't know if we could kick that 800,000 up to maybe $1 million or whatever it is to kind of subsidize that cost. Is that a possibility, or?
Well, the federal government's chipping in the 800, so
Yeah.
that's why they put you under the gun to comply with the ADA. That's their leverage. Other than that, other grants for road building, very slim out there. They just don't fund granted road building, other than this plan, this grant that we're under, the 800,000. Now, is there a chance to increase under that same funding source? Can be looked into as we develop this project.
How do they arrive at the 800,000 that they did? Is that per block, per foot? How does that? And it seems random.
They don't write it, they don't arrive at it. There's, the federal government allocates funding to the DOT. The DOT breaks it down based on regions within the state. So our region is Region 12, and there's so much STP funding, Surface Transportation Program funding, comes to Region 12. And it is to be used for projects within the region that have a regional impact on transportation. That's the definition. Okay, so our regional impact on transportation in this project is $800,000. So it's possible it could increase a little bit. It can be reviewed for a request to increase. Nothing is firm on that.
And is there like an ADA grant? I assume there's some kind of ADA, and I can look into it too. I assume there's some kind of ADA grant out there which necessarily it's not for a road, but it's still being used for, you know what I mean? Like, we're still using it just in order to get creative so that it's not as much of a stint, you know? I don't know, and I can look at it, I guess.
Well, we can reach out to
research
Region
that.
12, and they're
Yeah,
the
you
folks
know.
that have the most knowledge on
Okay.
grants available,
All
so
right,
we can
thank you.
reach out to see if they've got the.
I got one other question. So there's 800,000 available for the grant. I guess listening to some of this conversation, is it dependent on the length of the road? Or is this a project that could be shortened up, cost less, and still get the $800,000 and put into 2 projects?
It's based on a percentage of the project.
Okay.
Yeah, and it could be shortened. I mean, we have a
Without the
large
800,000 going away.
project. Yeah, we have a large project. Percentage-wise, the 800,000 is a smaller percentage of it.
Okay. That would be my question is like, so does the 12th Street or the whole thing need to be so long? Or can it be shortened up into a smaller project with still getting the $800,000,
Yeah,
rendering it virtually
Are
cost
these
free?
problems that we're finding under, are they consistent in a location? Or are they sporadic throughout the, you know what I mean? You got a problem, and then 1 mile down the road, you got a problem, or, you know what I mean? I guess if that,
Yeah, they're on much for catastrophic failures in either the sanitary sewer or water systems. But they're both, sanitary sewer exhibits pretty much the same throughout the length of it as far as the type of deterioration in it. So with the street project being a full depth reconstruction, sanitary sewer is recommended to be replaced as part of just an infrastructure upgrade. I mean, it's.
But you see where I'm coming from, right?
Tom, I have a question based on that.
Yeah.
Randy, does Region 12 split up their as STP funds? Is that what you said?
Yes.
All right, they probably get split up per governmental entity based on population, stuff like that. So our 800, is that how they do that here? Because Area 15, I usually said Area 51, but Area 15 split it up by population. So,
Yeah, technically, that's not permitted under the federal government guidelines.
well, we're far enough away, I don't think they'll find out. But anyway,
It's, we,
we could call it.
there's
another way to
there's a
do it.
committee that makes a recommendation to the executive committee of the region. And that committee tries to make everything equal among the members of the
area.
region, the region members.
So,
6
so,
counties.
so to answer your question, we get this amount allotment, and that's what we're trying to use that allotment for.
Right?
Make sense?
Yes.
Randy, if this is broken into 2 projects, I just think from Maine to Northwest, you know, that's phase 1. Phase 2's Maine to Grant. Would that get 800 one year, option to get 800 the next?
That was kind of where I was headed.
Sure.
Once we broke it.
It would get 800 one year and probably not a total of 800 the second year.
But if we got half of it, it may,
You get the second year.
Well, we'd have to determine that. I don't have those numbers right now.
Something's better than nothing.
I think we'd probably be breaking it up to 2 in 2 different sections anyways.
Right now, it's not. Now, it may actually, in actuality, end up that way, like Adams Street did. But at the current time, it's not.
I mean, I would almost think we explore that just to,
Is there a way you could find out how much we would get if we broke it up into 2?
It would take some time, yes, but it could be, I think it could probably be determined.
We love time up
Deal.
here. We love time up here, if you haven't noticed. We
are
love
in
time.
negotiation.
Time is on our side up here.
Randy, would we have all the extra costs of then rebidding and all the paperwork and time and, I mean, and then you're kicking it down the road and the inflation?
We don't want to kick it down the road other than the fact of
Well,
utilizing
for
$800,000.
$500,000, that's, I'll
But
kick
what
it down the road and still end up on top.
We don't know, that's not a guarantee.
Well, that's why we're gonna wait and see what we do get out of it, and then we can
Well,
decide from there.
we're not going to bid yet either. so.
Yeah.
No.
But we're
getting close.
part of the memorandum. We're on a federal aid development schedule too. And in order to get this project let, it's a long-term schedule. And your next meeting will really be key. We're not asking for any decision tonight, obviously, but your next meeting will be key for decision-making to keep it on the federal aid schedule. So,
Can you get us that key information before the next key decision?
No pressure.
probably
No pressure,
can't,
but-
probably can't, I mean, I can make a projection on it.
Okay.
But couldn't get it firm.
Okay.
Because that's a decision that the committee, the Region 12 committee makes.
Yeah, if you could get us a ballpark of how much, you know what I mean? That would be, I think that would help. Wouldn't that help you, Kyle?
Yeah, I think so, but then too, I think you weigh this, the part of, design, going back to bid, all the other factors that go into it,
I do, but with the monetary value on that, if it's $500,000 that I'm saving, then yeah, I mean, that's.
No, I agree. I think
You know, I mean,
seeing
like-
it both ways.
Like,
or-
I mean, that's why that number is very important. Now, yeah, if it's $50,000, yeah, we're not gonna go out to, but I mean, we're talking about $800,000. Let's say we cut that in half, we're at $400,000 that we save and we have to go back out to design. We're plus $300,000 into a project. Right? I mean,
Unless there were another project you had scheduled for next year that would qualify as well, so.
It'll,
also get the
the use would just delay the next project.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The use of the federal aid funding for this project would just delay the next federal aid project. That's just what it does.
you gotta think over the course of 4 years, if I split these things in, I'm making I'm plus $600,000 in the course of 4 years by splitting these projects into, you know what I mean? Like, that's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's a way to look at it. The other is that federal aid funding that comes in the future would be used for another project. It's either this one or another one. I mean, there's only a limited amount of federal aid funding. So, and you've got roads all over town that need repair. And so a lot of our historical federal aid funding has been for those overlay resurfacing projects. So it's, you can use it now or use it later. It's either one.
Anything else for Randy? All right, let's-
Anyway, the question will be, how wide do you want it? That's the underlying question, and it's a legislative question because parking is involved in it. So that's, what we will bring back some typical designs, or not designs, but drawings, and some relative cost estimates for the widths of the pavement. And that decision will be key to moving forward on the project.
So High Ridge Road, when we redid that one, how wide is that road?
High Ridge?
Yeah.
28,
28?
and we overlaid it.
How wide's Adams?
Adams is 31. It's 31 up to 13th, or 12th Street, and then it's 28, I think, from 12th to 13th. So,
Mayor, can I ask just a quick question? It's quick.
Go ahead.
Yep. Poor Randy, I came here for one question and you spawned 40 more.
Go ahead and say who you are.
Mark Beardmore, 2625 Forest. I do not have a dog in the height
No,
on 12th Street, but I just noticed when we did Adams Street, this council chose a very wise thing, and the councils before us set a precedent where we'd been saving up local option sales tax dollars. And I didn't see anything in the memo that had the funding of the 5.2 in there. I'm just here, are we doing that? Have we been setting money aside? We've already heard that it's gonna be a pretty expansive, with an A, and an expensive project, far more involved than Adams Street was. And we had $775,000 saved over 3 fiscal years. In addition to that, we had $1 million that we used off of
Phase 11, which was a wonderful idea, but my point is we bonded very little, I think $1.8 million for a $4 million project. And again, I support the council and the prior council's decisions, wanting to do a full depth reconstruction every 3 years. I think that's, I urge you to stay the course with that. But my question is, are we going to be hanging more debt on our citizens, or are we doing the conscientious and wise thing by the precedent set before, where we use the nice little signs that say this project funded in part by local option sales tax? Are we doing that?
It's not, we haven't done it at this time. It's not been discussed to do it at this, for this project at this time, but we can.
So it wasn't in the fiscal year 25 either, so I mean, it's too
No.
late for fiscal year 25.
No.
You're in the middle of fiscal year 26 right now. This is planned for,
Next year.
yeah, it's already gonna be a little bit too late to be, I mean, again, that's why I'm here. I just wanna see, proper, I've cautioned the council before about local option sales tax and keep going back to the well. And, something as judicious and appropriate for the common good and for all taxpayers would be, appropriate use of local option sales tax for projects like this moving forward. So nothing yet, nothing, period.
No, not at this time, so. All right, but thank you for your thoughts on it. Okay, anything else? All right, we'll move on to fiscal year 2025 budget information, capital improvement plan. And Aaron.
Thank you, Mayor. If you look in your budget books, there's a FY '26 City Council Budget Workshop schedule. And in tonight's meeting, we've already actually gone over tabs A and B to some extent. So we're gonna skip over that and go over tab C, which is the capital improvements in our bonding plan. In February 3rd, we were gonna talk, in our special session, we will talk about, we got tabs D, which is all debt summary. Hopefully we can cover some of that today. And tab T, but then we'll have the police department, the admin, public works, and other areas on February 3rd. And then February 5th, our plan is to have the fire department, building department, library, and park and rec for those that evening. Going on to tab C, the first page, which is page 29, is the capital improvement plan. It actually has projects by fund, source, and department. So as we go through these projects, you're gonna see where we're planning on coming up with some funds to provide for these projects. We'll also note all of these projects are funded through our debt service levy, which Mark talked about, or Mr. Beermore talked about funding things judiciously. The council in the past has set a $1.40 levy for our tax, for our debt service levy. And we are not projecting an increase in that $1.40 tax levy this year or in the near future for that levy. So as we go down the projects, some of you have heard about the airport corporate hangar. This next fiscal year, we're going to be using federal grant dollars to do, I believe it's engineering for that project. We have a $5,500 input from that. We feel pretty comfortable that we can cover that part of the engineering without making a lot of adjustments to our budget. No bonding or anything like that. The Aquatic Center, which is the next project, that is going to be funded through local option sales tax. For the Aquatic Center, that means sandblasting and repainting basically the pool.
I have a question before we start. This undetermined, is that
We're
what
gonna,
we're expected to pay?
that would be our $5,500 out of our pocket, yes.
Fiscal 27.
Yeah, or which one? Yeah, the $5,500 on FY '26, right?
I see that.
No, but fiscal 27, there's an undetermined amount of 300,000.
Correct. That would be our portion of the federal funding for that. My plan at this point in time is to use the increase in hangar rent to help us pay for that. So they would, as the airport does that, that would be their portion of the funds. We would use our funds to cover it, but then the airport hangar rent would be paying it back.
$5,500 and then they get a new hangar.
No, it'll be $5,500 for the engineering, and then the next fiscal year in FY '27, it'd be about
Then you
$300,000.
pay for the hangar?
Well, yeah, if you look, there's $1.2 million for the construction project. It's $750,000 from federal government, and there's another $150 from state government
We can
for
talk
those
about that
projects.
later. I find-
That's not in this year's plans.
Our constituents are struggling to make it, and we're gonna have to spend $300,000 on a hangar. I don't know how that's gonna fly for any of us.
So it's in the capital improvement plans. You all have an opportunity to tell us, well, we won't finalize that part of the capital improvement plan until next year.
Oh, yeah.
But it's on the plan as of now. Aquatic Center, we just talked about, that's local option sales tax dollars. The water tanker fire truck, we'd planned on the $400,000 for a bond. Golf course maintenance building, that's next fiscal year, not this, I should say FY '27. Nothing in storm sewer next year. And then going down to streets, there's a backhoe for $200,000, a sidewalks of $50,000. Turning the page, then you've got 12th Street reconstruction where all of the different funding sources are. As you can see, electric franchise is paying some, federal grant dollars, the GEO bond, local option sales tax is in there at this point for $200,000. Road use tax is paying $800,000. Sewer and water utility funds are paying $500,000 apiece. That's on page 30, about a third of the way down the page on the left side of the column. Did everybody see that? Caught up?
Yeah.
Okay. Wastewater for next fiscal year, we have a sanitary sewer rehabilitation, which we do on an annual basis. That will come out of the utility fund. The US West sanitary sewer and water main extension, that will be part of a GEO bond, but that'll be repaid for TIF. That is the Ziegler Caterpillar extension. Been talking with them. They are planning on starting work this spring. I don't have the development agreement back from them, but that's the plan as of right now. We won't start digging or anything like that until they start digging.
Here.
Wastewater treatment copper compliance, and that's $100,000. That's out of the utility fund. Then the digester and VLR project, that's part of a GEO bond, but that is actually going to be repaid through utility fees. Wastewater nutrient reduction, that is also out of utility fees. The next big one is the Northwest Water Pressure Zone, which is a $4 million project. We are gonna bond for that. We will use some water utility fees, but the bond will also be paid for utility fees, and that will require an increase in water fees over the next 2 years. We don't know exactly what it is. We thought it was gonna be about 17% increase in fees, but it's gonna be a little bit more than that for a 20-year bond. So my guess would be a 10% increase each year, which is, if you're talking about a 10% on a normal average house, you're talking about $3 a month, I believe.
So
Am I
what's the
right?
overall increase we'd see on the water bill?
10% next year would be, on an average house of 4, would be about a $3 increase to your water fee. So next year would be $3 increase, and then the next year would be $3.30. So it'd be about a $6 over 2 years. We haven't had an increase in the water fee since 2017, so that's what it's gonna cost to put that Northwest Pressure Zone in place.
Give me that figure again, what's the cost of that?
The total project is $3,985,000 as of right now.
I think it's a little more, that's just showing the cost in fiscal '26. I believe there are some projected costs in fiscal '25.
Oh, we might have some.
I don't remember the cost off the top of my head.
$5,485,000 total.
Total,
project.
okay. Okay, so with all of that, yes, there's probably gonna be a large bond issue in the spring of '26. Is it '26 or calendar year '27?
No, spring 26.
Spring of '26, so this spring, we're gonna have a large bond issue. However, if I remember right, there's only the $2 million from the street project
And the fire truck.
and the fire truck, so $2,400,000, that will be just general fund, or I shouldn't say general fund, but debt service levy. So the $1.40 that we levy for, that's what that $2.4 million will go to. Everything else, the $5 million water, the sewer, the LVR, the 3-point-some million dollars for the wastewater plant, those are all gonna be paid through utility fees. So again, our overall debt service levy is gonna stay at $1.40. Our overall tax asking for the year is going to stay at $12.16 and some change for the overall budget. When down the road, just for information, when we take projects out of these processes, then it creates a little bit of a havoc with us and with our finance officer to try and make sure that we maintain that $1.40 to try and keep that tax levy the same. If, for example, if we didn't do some finagling this year without the Southgate project, our levy could have gone down to like 75 cents in the debt service levy, but then if we turn around and borrow $2.4 million next year and ramp that up 70 cents, the citizens aren't gonna be very happy with us for raising taxes. So if you can maintain a steady debt levy, people tend to be more comfortable with that than an up and a down and an up and a down.
She remembers that raise we gave her, she's all right, she's got it, I know.
It creates more stress than just Laura, just saying. So,
Especially businesses wanting to maintain.
yeah, businesses are more concerned about a levy, stable debt or levy in general than probably the
So
citizens
there's
pay a
no
lot of
voted
attention.
bond
No,
referendum?
there are no, what is it called?
General corp,
General corp borrowing. This is all infrastructure borrowing,
Okay.
essential corp.
which are essential corp, yes.
How much did we have to ask from our departments to decrease their budget to get to where we are?
We asked them out of there to avoid any service shutdown. We asked them to cut about a 5% out of their commodities and what is the other? Services and commodities section, which is essentially, we're not gonna buy quite so many light bulbs this year or other similar products. Didn't affect any personnel or any costs like that.
What was the total that equaled up to?
About a little under $200,000 is what we ended up cutting out of services and commodities. I don't remember the exact dollar
I
amount.
would say they were cuts that we're not gonna buy some stuff. It
Right.
was taking a really hard, closer
It-
look at making sure we weren't necessarily inflating a line
What-
item just because. Looking at past history, the last 2 years of what that line item actually had occurred, and your best guess on, do we think if something was high last year, is it gonna continue to be high compared to the prior year? Or do we think that was just an anomaly, or are we gonna continue at that level? So it was just more so looking really more closely at, are we doing our best guess at our estimating for our budget? I wouldn't say it was necessarily cutting.
Right.
Get product.
The statement to all of our department heads was, we do not want to cut services. So if something has to cut a service, we aren't going to do that. The other side of it is, for example, I'm going to throw Dan under the bus, kinda. If we have a large expenditure in the fire department because an engine blew up in the tower truck, we don't have money set aside to do that. We'd have to come back and do a budget amendment that would require us to pull money out of reserves to cover that cost. That's an extreme example, but we're sharpening our pencil more and more because if you look at my budget memo, We only received an extra $66,000 in general fund dollars this year. And our wages increased $314,000.
Traffic light signals, I got,
Oh, yeah,
is that looking like that's gonna be done next summer? Is that right?
That's the plan, yes.
I see by the date you have here.
That was one I forgot to mention. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. That's all I have at this point. We will be going over each department, like we talked about, so we'll talk about more of the budget as we go into this. So each capital improvement project is in individual budgets, so we will talk about that again, most of this again in the future.
Randy, speaking of these traffic lights, when is the date to remove the Adam Street and Court Street lights?
Well, the plan was to include that in this traffic signal project. We would likely have a contractor that would be capable of doing that under contract. So it would be, concurrent with this project, bid right into it for those removals.
How much does it cost to take out a traffic light that doesn't work?
I do not know offhand.
And the only reason I ask is I have people ask all the time, when are you taking those lights down?
I get that asked too, but I just tell them when we put up new ones.
Yeah.
That's when I used to tell them.
If the number's high enough, me and my sons will get out there and cut the thing down.
Ooh. Careful. Our workman's comp might not cover that.
I'll sign a waiver saying that I won't see
And,
it.
the times are not on here specifically, but what, just for the
Don't we normally do all of our budget meetings normal,
We'll start at 5:15.
5:15.
normal department, or,
Yeah, we'll do an agenda and send out an agenda by Thursday this week for sure.
Oh, good.
Oh, perfect, okay,
It'll be a pretty simple agenda, but yeah, the meeting will start at 5:15.
okay.
Unless there was a request now.
Any other questions right now?
Well, I got,
We're talking about-
we need to pay attention to their state legislatures, because House File 101, they're looking at anytime you have a bond referendum, a voted bond referendum, are non-essential, that you have to come up with 20% of the money on your own. You can't bond for the whole 100%. That's in the legislatures now, so we'll see what they do.
for our non-essential corporate purposes, we've done that with both the rec center
Yeah, I
and,
know.
so I don't think that would really be a,
But, you know, if
Well,
a city's
huge
building a
issue.
new building or something, it's
Yeah.
a 10 million thing, now you got 2 million, you gotta come up with
And-
different money.
true.
And isn't the upcoming, they increased for the general issuance, they increased, they went from 700,000 up to, do you remember the?
I don't
they
know.
Yeah,
raised
they
that-
increased,
I haven't heard,
yeah,
but
I don't
yes, they are
remember,
going to be
yes.
adjusting it every year for an
Right,
inflationary
because
factor.
inflation, but I thought it kicked in this year.
Yeah, I believe that is correct.
And
I
it's
just don't
up
know what it
to
is.
800.
Yeah, we can look into that, yeah.
I was-
At this point, yes, that'll be something we need to know about going forward. The projects that are in our fiscal '26, nothing has to do with that at this point.
Okay, okay.
yes, we
But
need
that's
to
a
know.
good thing. I
Yeah,
mean, it'll
yep.
be a, yeah.
Okay, we'll move on. Committee reports, information only. Comments from the mayor, I have one tonight, and I wanna thank, our fire department, for offering their services down to Manning for the tragic fire that they had. I talked to Dan, our fire chief, this afternoon, thanked him for what we had done. And Dan, if you wanna comment on what we contributed to them, and I know other cities did too, and it's great that they did, but that's, you know,
I
it's
mean,
one of those things that we just
Listen to the
do for our
radio and
neighbors.
all. There was 10 total departments down there. The amount of water flow that we went through, I asked the guys this morning if they kept track on the meter, what we pumped last night, but we pumped for about an hour and 50 minutes at about 1,200 gallons a minute. And I think it was like 9 o'clock, they shut us down because they were 20 minutes from being out of water for the city. So it was a huge amount of volume of water that they were going through. And then I think, talking to somebody, at a certain time, they quit running their hydrants and reverted to the pond in the southwest corner of the city. And that's where all the water, a majority of the water was coming from.
And we drew water out of that pond as well for them?
No,
Is that right?
our
We
truck
did
was
not.
strictly on the
Okay.
hydrant the whole time, just because of the volume. That ladder truck takes a ton of water to make it work. So that was why they hooked us right directly to a hydrant. And essentially, that's why they shut us down too, was because of that. But at that point, the building had already collapsed and it was internal and they were just monitoring it as it went, so.
Dan, do you ever worry that if we have a structure fire similar to that the city of Carroll would ever be in a situation where we'd run out of water?
So normally, our procedure is that if we know we have a big structure fire like that, one of the first calls we would get a hold of would be Devin in the water plant to come and monitor the flows and make sure if he needed to engage, if I understand it right, engage pumps to keep the water flowing. And we could resource to that too. I mean, you could go to tankers and have your surrounding communities bring water in and things like that too, you know. But yeah, and overall, listening to the Banning department, kudos to them, it sounded on the radio, they did a heck of a job with incident command, monitoring shuttle trucks and where to disperse water to and the rehab and all that stuff. They did a really good job listening to them on the radio last night, so.
I guess my question is, you're pumping 12, what'd you say?
We pump about 1,200 gallons a minute.
1,200 gallons a minute. How long does our system allow us? Like, is it an hour, is it?
I couldn't even tell you what.
I think that was kind of your question, like.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure.
Can our system pump for 45 minutes, or is it like 20 minutes?
I would assume ours is a lot larger than Manning's system,
Yeah.
you know.
We have
Wells
wells
in place.
that would be activated
Okay,
to
all right.
continue to fill the
The-
tower. And
Okay.
we fill with one high service pump at 1,200 gallons per minute.
Oh,
And in those cases, we can use two high service pumps with wells that'll produce 2,500 gallons a minute total,
question
so
answered. Just
So how
wanted
many,
to-
how many
Yeah, all right.
gallons are in the water tower?
500.
And you got another one south of town that's 500 also?
No, we have 1 million
In the
ground
window.
storage,
Right.
1 million.
500 elevated storage.
Yeah.
So the thing is, good job going down, I mean, that's awesome. I
Yes,
guess-
we had 6 guys down there, but just to run the tower, I mean, they said it was pretty intense for a while as it was flowing,
So I
so.
just wanna make sure next week we weren't able to only pump 15 minutes, you know, like, so, but good job, guys.
That communication between the water department and the fire department would be essential if we would ever have a fire like that, so.
All right, so thanks again for you and the men the people that went down there as well. So any comments from the city council this evening?
I'll let Aaron go first.
We'll go with the city manager, that's fine.
Last week, Wednesday, the county planning and zoning met to recommend to the supervisors to abolish our 2080 agreement. I was disappointed this morning to have two of the supervisors commenting about how we have not been talking to or working with the supervisors to come with a proposal that would be an agreement or a meeting halfway. One supervisor commented that he wants to see an official comment from the city. We should have had it by now. This is a little bit of a paraphrase, but then later he just kind of said that it's kind of a shot across or a warning shot. The other supervisor has said, we haven't heard anything from the city. Apparently they don't care. Shame on them if they haven't made any comments at this point. I think that that's a lack of communication between supervisors, because we have met with two supervisors, or we have made two meetings since we had the original letter from the supervisors back on October 4th. We've met twice. We felt we had a fairly good dialogue and thought we had an agreement to work with them over the mile, which was one of their two recommendations given to us back on 10/4. And so I think I'm a little disappointed that they made the comments and kind of made us look like the bad guy again, or trying to make us look like the bad guy, because that's not, we met with supervisors that way to avoid anybody looking like the bad guy. And then there's not.
At their request.
At their request. So, just council, I will try and write up a letter between now and Monday reiterating what we had come to an agreement in, but we had not been told that it's time to write a letter to the supervisors requesting this. So,
So Aaron, you're a little bit nicer than me. I want to say, the comment that was said today was factually just not accurate. I myself have been at almost every single of these 28E agreement meetings, looking for some type of answer from them of what direction that they want to go in. It's so that I could deliver to Kyle and Tom. After every last one of your meetings, I called you guys, said what happened with your meetings, okay? As far as the term warning shot, I was in the Marines for 20 years, don't really know what that means, okay? That's not how we played, okay? But to sit here and say that we did not care, we didn't put in any effort, it's a false statement. It is. This is their political football that they need to handle. This is a 50-50 thing. From the start when they came in there, we got in a little bit of an argument amongst us, and it was brought to the attention that this is a 50-50 thing. This isn't a 51-49. So we saw nothing wrong with it. They saw something that was wrong with it. We've requested numerous times for them to deliver us with whatever they wanted to do. That has not happened, okay? I called them today. I've talked to a couple of them today, and I think I had a good conversation of what the path forward is, but it ultimately has to come down to the supervisors, what they want. Because us as city officials obviously want to maintain as much control as possible. That's always been our stance. I've told that stance to your constituents and everybody else. And so we'll support it if it's abolishment. We'll support it if it's a mile. We'll support it if it's 3 miles. You got to communicate with us. Now, will we like it? We might not like it, but that's what you get for being in a 50-50 deal. That's just what you get. Come to us with a proposal of what you want, and we'll entertain it. And that's where I am. And you're looking at all of us up here, we're basically volunteers, okay? You make $36,000 a year and get IFRS. If you want to cut a deal, pick up the phone and call somebody. You know, I make $189 a month. I shouldn't be the one out there pushing to get the deal done for you that you want the change on. You guys should be the change agents at this point, you know? And so it's very frustrating when you hear people take shots is what I know when people take shots, that's all I hear. I don't know about this warning shot thing, but if you're gonna take shots, make sure that it's accurate and you're delivering what's accurate. Because Scott, you can probably attest that I have been to almost every single 28E agreement meeting that they have. So if you, Colin, you're in here too. I have been at almost all of them and tried to support the supervisors through this process, and to take a shot, it's unprofessional and uncalled for.
Let me ask.
and we got thrown out of one.
May I ask?
What?
Aaron,
Well, that wasn't a.
That wasn't a
That
county
wasn't a
meeting.
supervisor's meeting.
Aaron,
Yes.
you threw, it was mainly Mike and Steph, and then you chose a couple negotiators for our side, or
Kyle
somebody
and
did.
Tom.
Kyle and Tom.
Kyle and Tom, and you threw around ideas, I guess, some suggestions, because there are only 2 issues at hand. The zoning in the 2 mile area, which Sarah Haverhill, and I've watched the Board of Supervisors meetings, and she told them it's almost exactly the same, except for a few minor details. In fact, we're more generous with that exception for the occupation on the farm. The biggest issue, and I remember Mike saying this, was the permitting process. And it was very disturbing to me that they didn't know in our building code, there was an appeal process that they could go through, and they felt they had not been treated fairly. And I brought that up. They were on our agenda. Steph and Mike were on our agenda. I think, Scott, you attended our October 14th meeting, and we were just throwing around, it was a healthy discussion. I made a booklet, gave it to everyone. I gave one to Scott, and I used their own new comprehensive plan. So, but after that, then that was a springboard for you to come together and address mainly the building permitting, which it was the cost and some other things, but you don't get anywhere, and you threw some ideas around, and none of us really know, we know a little bit, but I think we need to have another open meeting on our agenda and discuss what it was the city threw around as ideas, and so that people know, people in the public are asking me, especially in business. They wanna know what's gonna happen, you know, to the zoning, to the permitting. I really believe if these ideas that obviously weren't carried to other members, and I know you've got a new member, Mark's on now, that if they aren't aware of what was thrown around, I mean, I think the lack of transparency, even with the Board of Supervisors, is shameful. And they need to know what ideas were brought out with our negotiators. I think from what I've heard, you negotiated in good faith. I hope they did. But I think these things need to be brought out and not, and we should not, I agree with Jason, we should not be misrepresented. I believe that we really worked hard at our meeting on October 14th, and then you guys gave up your time to try and solve problems. That's what this is all about.
So, yeah, I mean,
And this is very disturbing to me, what was in the news, and that's all I'm gonna say.
so I challenge the supervisors in closing to come with a plan. I mean, it's a 50-50 deal. Like, we are more than open ears. We understand at the end of the day that you guys can abolish it, terminate, or whatever terminology that you want to do. And so you're asking us to negotiate, but we're negotiating from a position of weakness. Like, I mean, it's a 50-50 deal. Like, I could see if you guys only had 49 and we had 51 asking us, but I mean, if your head's set on just eliminating it, then stand on it and eliminate it. If you want a deal, come to us and we'll do it. We'll do a deal. Like, but at some point in time, this is your guys' land. This is your guys' area. This is your guys' gig. We're just partners that have input and stuff like that. And yeah, we want our input to be heard. But I mean, evidently, if you don't listen to it, there's nothing that we can do in a 50-50 deal. There's not anything that we could do. And so that's what's, I guess, frustrating about it is, I don't know if we didn't grovel enough or what it is, but I mean, we're just, you know, we're trying to make the best out of a situation. We understand that you see the problem. Deliver us what you want to happen. And I'm sure, I can't speak for everybody, but at least myself and from talking to people, we will try to accommodate whatever it is that you know what I mean? Whatever hardship that you want fixed.
So I've spoken today to a couple of the members of their members and plan to follow up on this. And from the very get-go, kind of a goal of mine was to prove that the city and the county are not adversaries. We're all we live together and we don't want to be adversaries. And this very thing kind of took me off guard that it ended up the way it did.
Exactly.
But now it's time to repair that. And I hope to maybe meet perhaps with Scott down the road between now and the next meeting. And I guess I would ask that we do something together sooner rather than later about it, because we understand you want a change made. We get that. And I don't really think we're complaining about that, but we're just disappointed in how today's meeting went and caught us a little bit off guard.
So this is like the olive branch. We want like a symbolic deal. Like, I think it's more than just a 28E. I think it's the fact that the city and the county agree upon something, whatever that may be, that we can agree will speak volumes going forward from our chamber and your chamber.
I think we had great dialogue, the meetings that we had and the semi-participation, because one of the meetings, we only had half the representatives on the county there on the meeting request time, so. I mean, I think
on the first one, we were drawing lines to figure out where the 1 mile mark was. I didn't understand what happened.
Yeah.
The second meeting, Mike was there and nobody else showed up, but we waited an hour and that was it. I have to be honest, I'm kind of heartbroken because getting thrown under the bus and then the two people that were supposed to be there meeting with us weren't even at your meeting. I don't understand. I pride myself on integrity and honesty and everything else that goes with it. But it was like, wow, when I was watching that shame on us, I was like, oh, what happened here? The two guys that were supposed to be there weren't even there.
All we did today, though, was accept the zoning commission. We just accepted, acknowledged their recommendation.
Right.
We understand that.
Yeah.
There were shots fired. Whether they're warning shots or real shots, like, I mean, that's not the truth.
kinda hurt.
That was not the truth that was communicated out of there, that we're unwilling to do a deal. That's factually incorrect.
Well, it was actually not that we're unwilling to do it, is we didn't care about doing anything. And that's, I guess my perspective is that's far from the truth, because we have talked to, I've talked to Scott numerous times. I've talked to, we set meetings with Mike and Stephanie. So what I'll do between now and the end of this week, I will get my recollection of what we agreed to put together on paper, and I'll let the council look at it prior to me sending it as the official response from the city back to the supervisors. And I truly hope that the two supervisors that made those comments would be willing to issue us an apology to their public statements, because that does not show good cooperation between the city and the county. And one of them lives in our town, and that's disappointing. That's all I got.
We'll talk.
Mic drop.
I've talked to several of you today already.
That's right.
I've talked to several
This
of
is-
you since March when this started.
This will work out.
Screw it out of here.
All right. All right.
And
I'm
Scott,
here tonight.
Did you have a comment yet, Carolyn?
no, I just wanted to tell Scott, he knows where I stand. I have not changed, and I do feel we can work these out without blowing up the agreement. I really do believe there are enough talented, smart people who
I
can
think
do
the
it.
city attorney and county attorney agree that the language of the 41-year-old document needs brought up to the 21st century.
And I think another big thing, I'm sorry, but he was right. Worden was right. The language was wrong. We cannot go beyond the 2 miles. And if we have to back off, that makes sense.
I think Dave and John
He
are on the
is-
same page of
yeah.
what needs to be changed.
That has got to be addressed.
Okay, thank you all.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, Tom, Jason seconded. Roll call, please.
Atherton,
Yes.
Ordero.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Dirk,
Yes.
Yes.
Trek, yes, we're adjourned.